Well, my name's George, and I'm the coordinator, one of the coordinators and the artistic director of our project, which is called Reboot the Roots. Reboot the Roots is essentially a residential shelter home based in a rural area outside of Kuala Lumpur, where we feed, clothe and house a group of people in recovery from addiction, some of whom are living with HIV, and we are engaged in arts for social cohesion. Arts for social cohesion is essentially using different art forms and media as a platform to create dialogue and integration between socially excluded groups and mainstream society. We've been operating for about 5 years in different forms, but have been independently funded as Reboot the Roots since March of this year. Our essential principles are based upon theatre of the oppressed. Theatre of the oppressed is a model developed by Augusto Boal, which advocates that all life is essentially theatre, and that through understanding power relationships in our personal life, we can discuss wider social issues, because we believe that the personal is the social. Personal issues are social issues.
Sesuatu yang lebih menyeronokkan. Aku mengambil apa sahaja yang ada. Bangun kesedaran.
Imagine you have two groups of people, perhaps one from a recovering drug user background, 30, 40 years in and out of prison, addiction, living on the streets, coping with a great deal of trauma, and you have a, if I'm going to be very generic, middle class, professional, young 20-something, straight out of university, drug-free, alcohol-free. Then what are they going to talk about when you bring them together? Why would they even meet each other? You know, in what part of the world would they come together and experience one another and have a meaningful exchange? Well, we would say that through our workshops, we bring together people from as diverse backgrounds and create conversation through the exchange of artistic mediums. In its simplest form, it can be drawing portraits of each other. So you get the two to sit down, they look at each other properly, and they draw each other, and then they exchange. In its most complicated form, you would have a forum theatre piece where a problem is presented and a live action discussion takes place with people exchanging places with those they see on stage. So the tool essentially is about building empathy, humanization, about exchanging of roles, and about creating a dialogue. The word dialogue is very key. We would advocate that largely in society we are exposed to a monologue, people in power telling us what we should do, what we should think, how we should respond. Oppressed people in particular are disempowered in that they are not given a platform to respond. An example would be, where are the voices and opinions of the stateless community in Malaysia, the recovering drug user community? Compare that with the majority Malay or the middle class or business interests. Okay? They all have adequate amount to voice their desires. So we try to redress that balance through using art. So up and coming, we have one of our biggest projects so far, which has been a part of our funding from the Commonwealth Foundation. This is where we are transplanting members of two communities from KL, our residential one in Batu Arang, and about a dozen of the kids from Chao Kit to Penang, to an area which suffers from similar issues of social exclusion to do with education, criminality, drug addiction. And what we intend to do once there is to create a series of workshops and performances combining those different groups to provide some experiential learning, opportunity for dialogue and sharing, and this time on a now national level, which should be very exciting. We're hoping that will go well. For me, the project is genuinely grassroots in terms that it is governed by the politics of the members of that community, by their desires, by their beliefs, and by a quite extreme degree of horizontal organisation. That's the ideal, but balancing it with the personal issues of addiction and with the emotional development of the members of that community, myself included. It's grown out of various projects over the last 4 or 5 years, going from a stage play into a touring forum theatre piece into a residential home, and I've never come across a project quite like it. I've heard about communal living experiences, but not quite organised in this way with this makeup of people. And I've heard about forum theatre projects as well, but I've never come across them combined quite like this. And for me, what we create through the workshops is almost an ideal model of society, because we have a very, very diverse and often extremely isolated from each other group of people, group of individuals who are brought together and find that they can actually function, operate, organise and create together and have a fantastic time without there being an overt hierarchy or coercion within that. It feeds out of the past and the present, really. I mean, that's what we're really trying to develop, is this sense that we are enabling people who have not had opportunities in the past to participate more fully in society and to discover their value and the value of the experiences they have had, which previously we've discovered has largely been wrapped with a lot of shame, a lot of guilt, but also, in our finding, is it has a great deal of use. So a large part is bringing together young people who are at risk of addiction or criminality with our current group, who have a great deal of experience of what can happen if you go down that path. As we progress, we're seeing members who have been with us for a longer amount of time developing more skills as performers, but most excitingly as facilitators. Our weekly Nur Salam Crash Pad workshop, which is with the urban poor kids, is now facilitated entirely by members. One member in particular is taking a key role in guiding the content and direction of that, and is now autonomous in terms of how he does it, which is very exciting, because now it pretty much means he can go every week and he will learn and he will develop and he will take the tools that he's learned with us and transmit them. This is it. Ideally, we were very, very keen to maintain that relationship with those young people, and the ideal is that more of our facilitators develop the skills to do that. Some people are going more down facilitation, other down performance, some down organisation in the house, but we would hope to continue to transmit those ideals and those skills onto those young people. The long-term goal is for this commune, this unit, to be entirely self-sufficient, generating funds through the various work activities that we find for them, and from finding partners in the local area. That would be the ideal. That, however, is a much more long-term goal, as we are not for profit, and we are not incredibly business-minded. We would much rather work with the personal problems than coerce people into monetary gain, I suppose. So we are constantly looking for funding. We have partnerships with various other NGOs and communities, but they obviously have the same funding issues we do. We have an increasingly developed network in the UK and France who are organising in solidarity with the projects out here. A large number of them are volunteers who have passed through or who have an awareness of the value of the work that we do. So rather than funding, some people would criticise me for saying this, but I would still always go for the social capital over investment capital, because I believe that we can find ways to function if we have the people and the relationships. Whereas if we have money and not those things, then it's a bankrupt project, ironically. So that's why the majority of our energy goes into social capital and investing in the people that we know and that we meet. Even if at times that means that we're stretching our resources quite thin, that is pretty much the mode that we've chosen to operate in.